So we're back again. We got 3 shows in, so we're getting there. And I think we've eventually, after going back and forth a million times, we found a name, right? We got a name for it.
Yeah,
Are we
something like unfiltered.
unfiltered? I like
But
unfiltered.
they still have to filter the unfiltered parts.
Well, that's in case we say fuck. There's the first beep of the show. First beep of the show. So yeah, we're going to go with unfiltered. And for those of you just jumping on for the first one, we've done a few shows. We had Woodsy on the last one. Basically, we just go all over lots of stuff, and we try and keep it a little bit loosey goosey. And it's not so, we love Spartan. We work for Spartan, but we were going to get into some topics that might touch a few nerves, and that's the plan of the show. So we've got a lot of stuff coming up. We've got a big show today. And we have a very, very special guest. Steve, do you want to do your intro bit? Do your intro?
Oh, I could do an intro, but David Magida is a very good friend of mine. Absolutely awesome, awesome Spartan racer and OCR racer as well. I suppose you will know him best with his dulcet tones of the commentary of a lot of the ESPN shows that we have done. But David Magida, welcome, sir.
Thanks for having me, fellas. This is what a treat. Where like Hammond is running the show, and I'm just second fiddle over here.
It's awesome, dude. This is great, mate. I know I've worked with you for a lot of years, doing some of the commentary and broadcasting some of the shows, which has been an absolute joy. Especially when we do live events and you throw it over to me and you can't hear me at all, and I'm just whispering on about some nonsense.
Where you do like, is he done? Because he's done. We can't hear. He's never in our earpiece. But it looks like he's done talking, guys. But
wait, Steve witness about nonsense? Is that I didn't really?
Well, since we started doing this, what I found was funny about this is all these episodes that we've done together for the Spartan show on NBC Sports or ESPN or whatever we've done them on the live commentary. Steve has turned into a celebrity, and and still everybody has no idea who I am. So I don't know how.
Well, apparently one of your friends called you up and said, "Who's that drunk British guy?"
Yes. Dude, my favorite guy in the show is that drunk British guy. He's like wasted all the time.
No, I just can't talk, mate.
He just always talks like that. When he gets drunk, he actually becomes coherent. He kind of goes backwards.
He sounds like he's American, actually.
It's not coffee. What? Don't swear at me, young man.
So it's funny that I'll agree with you, David, that he's definitely become a celeb, because one of my favorite things is the fact that he's won Race Director of the Year for the last 3 years, and he's not a race director.
That's do you feel
that's awesome.
That Garfield? Do you feel like
not that Garfield's bitter or anything?
Not that I'm bitter, but I came second, and I'm like, dude, what the fuck?
He's a race manager, and you're a race director, and he's taking your award.
Unbelievable. Here's what we've got today. This is the reason we got David in, because David, for those you don't know, is pure OG OCR. This guy's as old school as it gets. I guess probably like me and Hammond as well. We've all been kicking around for best part of a decade in this industry. So we had this idea for a show. It kind of came from something that Hammond was doing, which was the top 10 hardest races of 2021 that haven't happened. And we had the idea, why don't we discuss some of the top 10 hardest sufferfests of the last 10 years? So what we've done is we kind of put together we throw out some social media stuff, and we put it into the groups, and we got some chat back, and we've put together our tentative top 10 hardest beatdowns of the last 10 years. And obviously we wanted David to weigh in on it. But before I do that, I just wanted to touch base with Hammond on some news. So, Hammond, everyone's talking about this major thing that's happened and calling us very strange. But we both had our wisdom teeth out the exact same day.
Exact same day. And I think what was the funniest thing, that we then had a conversation straight afterwards, thinking that we were going to do this show recorded on that day, which would be very, very bad, considering that I was talking a bit like this. It was most people don't know who Chris Eubank is, but yeah, it was very much good job we weren't talking about the power rankings, put it that way.
The power, yeah. So that was me and Steve last Thursday.
he told me this, right? And my first thought was I envisioned in my head like some kind of sick twisted like Rochambeau where Steve reaches into your mouth with the pliers and rips out one of your teeth. And then it's your turn and you get to go the other way and you reach into his mouth and rip one of his out. And it just goes till somebody taps out. That's
I like
what I envisioned, you know, wisdom teeth, same day.
Well, considering that we're both still in pain and been popping painkillers, yes, we're doing the show on lots of drugs.
Oh yeah, I'm full of Vicodin. I'm full of Vicodin right now. I got a big hole. Oh, forget it. Anyway, back to OCR, whatever that stands for. All right. Couple of news things I want to throw out before we get into this, just to update people. Some Spartan news. Obviously, you know, the world is slowly getting back to normal. We're slowly getting back. States are opening up. Yeah. So as we mentioned on the last show, at the upcoming races, you're going to see the return of dunk wall. You're going to see sandbags. They've come back. The kids races are coming back. Thank gosh for that.
I was in Austin and we had a kids race. It was
first
amazing.
First one of the year. I'm so stoked about that. Spectators are coming back. I know there's been a lot of conversations. I've been looking at a lot of the chatter. People are this and why can't we do spectators? And this race does spectators. You know, it is what it is. Unfortunately, we're a big machine. You know, we're worldwide. We have to kind of be consistent. So, yeah, I've seen the chatter why we can't do it, but it's coming back. You know, Shade Tent's coming back. So I think spectators. I know Ohio, which is my next race, and Hammond, you're going to be there.
I'll be there.
That one, we don't have spectators, unfortunately. That one we'd already planned. It's already good to go. But after that, Utah, I've got kids. I've got spectators. I got an egg and spoon race. We got the sack race. We got trail races, everything. Unicycles running up and down the mountain. It's going to be a hell of a race. But yeah, so things are moving. So all right, let's get stuck into this. We got Mr. David here for a reason. So so David, first of all, what's going on with you right now? What's in your world?
Gosh, what is in my world? Well, you know, what happened in 2020, I was supposed to broadcast all these races and we were putting together a plan to lead the broadcast for all the DecaFit events. And then COVID happened, everything got canceled. And I thought to myself, you know, let's just get back into shape instead and maybe run some races, you know, started doing some marathons, things like that, ultra. And then this season rolled around and all of a sudden there were a few events on the board. High Rocks was there. I got to pop in and run that invitational. Did all right. DecaFit last weekend.
What do you mean you did all right? You did bloody amazing, dude. It was like second.
Yeah, second place.
That was pretty epic. I think that result there suddenly was just like, oh, somebody's quite fit. Somebody's come back, and I think it turned a lot of people's heads.
It is a solid awesome. Proof of fitness. I think there's no question. Like if you have a strong performance there, like you are fit. So I felt, you know, good about that. And then Yancey convinced me to pop into DecaFit like really last minute. And I flew down there last weekend and popped a decent race there too. Rich Ryan and I went under the world record, but he set a new world record before I even finished. So I did not get a world record, but you know, that's how that goes.
And that's another one who turned heads. He was fit.
What world record? What for what?
The DecaFit world record, the 5K DecaFit.
All right, we've only had 2, haven't we?
3, 4. I think there's been 4 total over time. But yeah, I mean, the race is fun. It's exciting. It's very, very aerobic. Like,
oh really? Like what's your average heart? What's your heart rate?
What's that?
What's your heart rate on something like that?
That's private, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I was like 170. I mean, it was up there. I mean, part of it is like you're turning every, like, I think we did the math because it was a 2-lap course per 500. So it was like 4 seconds of turning, 9 seconds of straightaway, 4 seconds of turning, 9 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
It's just very intense. Like things are happening so fast. You couldn't even like check your splits. Like it was just, it's just fast. But it's fun. And then
it's a good product. I think it's a great product for us to add to the brand, the Deca thing. I think it totally opens up a new kind of realm for us.
Awesome product. Feels very similar to like how you feel during a stadium race. So
gotcha.
that kind of burning sensation, high intensity. So I loved it. And then I've got I'm running the High Rocks Orlando race next weekend and their national championships at the end of the month. And then I'm just trying to jump into Spartan races the rest of the year, you know, see if I can.
Awesome.
I love it. The world's coming back to life. I love this.
Races returning. Races of any kind.
Yep.
coming back is like the best news in the world. The more that happen, the more we're going to be able to get.
Oh, I'm totally up there. I've got four beer miles already scheduled for the end of the month.
Amazing. Have you done the seltzer mile yet, though?
Is that a thing?
Yeah, it's basically no alcohol and double the pain.
Oh God,
that's two things I don't want: pain and no alcohol. I can't even drink, so I'm prone to. I like a cigar now and then, and I like a beverage. I can't do anything because of this stupid mouth. I cannot have a cigar for 3 months. I can't have a drink. It's ridiculous. I can't even make out with Steve in Ohio. Doctor's orders.
You guys will find a way.
What?
Well, absolutely.
By the way, we put masks on.
Draw some lips on it. All right, this is getting silly. That's good. All right, so Steve, what do we got? Let's get into these races. You want to start off with what you've got for number 10, and we'll go into that one. We'll go backwards.
Do I get to guess what these are ahead of time, or we just?
You can do it. I mean, if you want to guess, what would you? Well, you can have 10 backwards guesses from 10 downwards.
I don't think I'm gonna get the order correct at all. I could spitball a few out there that I know. Do I have to name a year too, or is it just the course?
Well, possibly, yeah. I think what we've got here, like if you look at my list down here, I've got about 7 different lists, because what we did a poll online. So we did one. Garfield did one on his page. I did one on a couple of mine on my page, and then we put some on some of the like the Southern Spartans, West Coast Spartans, that kind of stuff, and kind of roughly counted a few of them up. However, it's not fully detailed. But then I've got other lists of which and then
admit it, Steve. You got nerdy in the details.
I got a little bit nerdy, so I kind of looked into some of the races with the most elevation, the races with the slowest finishing time. So I've got kind of a lot of information here, not necessarily in a top 10 order. And this is kind of, I don't think this is adding my lot in there, but the overall top 10, I think we've got a lot of.
Wait, can I guess?
Yeah,
right, go for it. Give us
I'm just gonna I'm not gonna name years. We'll get into year discussions in a minute.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Surefire venues. Okay. Killington.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 2014 came up a bunch on mine.
Ironically, I think that was the easiest year.
And you know what? In the details, it kind of is, and I'll go into some of the details as well.
If you look at finishing time, like 2012's course was way harder.
Yeah,
way harder. And 2013, it gets shorter each year. And like
2012 was the Wild West of OCR.
Yeah,
I think 2015 Killington happened. It wasn't a championship, but it happened, and that was like the shortest one I've ever heard of. There.
Yeah, and then 16's actually on top of the list for the highest amount of elevation and also slowest beast finishing time.
Well, they had to make it hard. Like, they had to redeem themselves for that 2015 softy course. Okay, I'm gonna name some more. Palmerton.
Okay, that's a super. That is definitely up there for some of the hardest super races out there.
Okay. Other venues. Wintergreen.
That's on the list.
Yeah.
It should be, and Palmerton should be on the list. If it's not, it's only because there wasn't a beast. But Wintergreen, I've podiumed there twice. Okay. Big Bear.
Yep. I got that a few times on mine. 2017 came up a few times for Big Bear. Also 2018.
I think you're probably going to get some people saying Tahoe just because of the cold and whatnot.
I got a bunch of Tahoe 19.
Tahoe 19, and one of the reasons why it's coming up so often is actually one of the largest DNFs for an elite female finish. So with the amount of people started, that is actually holds the record for the least amount of finishes.
Which was the freezing one? Was that 19?
19, yeah. I know it's just because of the weather. So yes, it's not technically the hardest race, I don't think, but it's definitely worthy up there for, just a brutal one to try and finish just because of the weather.
All right, so I want to throw something out to both of you guys, because this brings up, especially one that you guys, I know, David, I don't believe you were there, but it came up a lot of mine, which was the Carolina Beast in 2019, which was an absolute insane sufferfest. However, the venue is It's not as hilly as West Virginia.
Hmm.
It's got a bit of rolling hills, and without Mother Nature, this is actually a really nice beast. So
But it's like
do we include
blood, right?
It was brutal. It was absolute nightmare. People, there are clubs on Facebook of people who were there.
Like, if you know, you know, kind of.
If you know, you know. But the next day without the weather. So do we include the weather in these races as a part of it, or is it just the venue?
I was just
you have to.
You're right. You're right. I mean, conditions make the race, so
yeah.
You do have to. I was thinking about a course like Breckenridge, like already really hard, but imagine it was like pouring rain and misery.
Yeah. And the thing is, it does change. Like it's very difficult to get, because one of the key races that kept on coming up, and I think this is kind of similar to the Carolinas as well, but so the Temecula races. So
I was going to say Temecula.
So Temecula 2015, Temecula 2016. So there was a hot one and then there was a rain one. The rain one was a sprint. However, I think I remember Mark Buttress being there. There was a bunch of other people there. They finished really quickly. Like, I think it was like 40 or 50 minutes. It wasn't a hard course. It was beautiful weather. And then everything turned to shit. Like, it was absolutely horrendous, and we had to cut off most of the course. And in terms of DNFs, it was a huge amount of DNFs, because we had all these people had to be diverted off the course. There was people still in the car park at 1 o'clock trying to get their cars out. It was an utter shit show. We had all these people all over the mountain. At one point, we had 6 medical gators stuck at one time, and I think we only had 6 medical gators, and it was just and then all these people with hypothermia, because it went from a beautiful short shorts and sports bra kind of weather into horrendous driving rain and about 35-40 degrees, just turned into another mud fest. And they had this clubhouse that I think a lot of people remember, because they ended up in it with hypothermia. The thing is, all the elites and all the open, all the age group waves had already gone home and sitting in a hotel. So I had no idea that this had happened.
This is like a very common thing too. Like, then all of a sudden it's a beautiful week all week. And then Saturday rolls around for a Spartan race, and then it's the most absolute dog crap weather you could ever imagine.
The World Championships in 2019, and that's why I remember looking at the start line, and it was so funny because the day before was a 70-degree day in Tahoe. It was absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, Carolinas, same thing. Yeah, Carolinas 19. It was gorgeous for the open house. It was beautiful. We was out in short shirts and t-shirts. The next day, it was like dry robes and misery.
You look at the start line on these races, and everyone's in like short shorts and sports bras, and it's just like,
and that's just you, Steve.
That's just me, and Magida, and. You see some of the people who have checked the weather. They've got their windbreaker on. They might have some sort of neoprene on or something. People did that in the World Champs in Tahoe 2019 and finished real well.
Yeah, work smart, not hard.
Well, yeah, and that was it. It's being prepared. But going back to that Carolinas race, I couldn't believe the amount of people that when we were doing this poll came up with that.
Oh, it was brutal. I mean, that was my race, and it was absolute. I've never had to cut out 4 miles of a race in the middle of a race. Literally, it was so bad because they were going down this hill, and the hill, basically the surface of the hill was grass, and then it got so just saturated with the people. It basically was like it just slipped off. The entire crust of the hill slipped off. Then we put ropes down it. Then the ropes, and we got to cut it out, and it was insane. But it's like all these races, like Killington, whenever people, it's just misery and despair. And then 2 days later, they're like, "Oh, I want to do it again." I mean, it's a badge of honor to do these races, I think.
You couldn't pay me to go run Killington again. I've raced there 3 times. I did the Ultra Beast there, like 2012, the year that we had to crawl up the bear's ass twice.
Yeah.
And no, I'm good. Good.
So I've got some stats here because I nerded out a little bit with Jack Bauer, and I asked Robert Coble and Jack Bauer about some of the sort of finishing times. Some of I researched some of the elevation gains myself, but basically I came up with a small list with the top 7 which could have been the hardest races, which is basically the most elevation and the slowest time. Killington 2016 had 6,620 feet of elevation gain in just under 15 miles, which is fucking ridiculous. The fastest men's time was 3:54. Imagine that's a beast course. And the fastest women's time was 5:12. And that's why 2016 had to be up there. I think they almost redeemed themselves in 2019, but it was still a quicker course. The next slowest time was 2013 Killington. That was a world championship race. 2017 Sun Peaks, and I know we're only doing US, but this is worldwide. So Sun Peaks, Canada, had 6,500 feet of elevation gain in about 14 miles. So Johnny Waite, I think, but the fastest finishing time of that was 3:33. And then you got more Killingtons, you got Andorra, and then a Montreal for sort of rounding up the top 7. But Killington has to be up there with some of the gnarliest, craziest, especially those ultra beasts that end up doing 14,000 feet of elevation gain in 29 miles.
It's just so awful. It's terrible. And the weather's always bad, especially at the top of the mountain. Like on the bottom, you're like, oh, this is fine. It's sunny. And then you get to the top and you're like on Mars. There's just you're just getting blasted by conditions and freezing cold.
Yeah. That was insane. So apart from the Killington and all the sort of Canadian races, Big Bear has some impressive totals. So in I think it was 17, we only ran 11 miles, but they hit 4,500 feet of elevation gain.
It's a lot of gain. It's really steep. It's a really steep mountain.
It's super, super steep. Same with 19, 12 miles, 5,000 feet of gain. But for relatively quick times, especially, the likes of Johnny Luna Lima running down some of those hills.
It's an outlier. It's an outlier.
It's runnable terrain. So it's very interesting when you get all of these races. And, and thanks to Jack Bauer and Robert Coble for some of those stats. But yeah, those old Killington races are just, I think they outweigh every, if you haven't done a Killington race, I think you got to go and got to experience it.
It's I was just such a naive little kid, basically. I was living in Miami the year that leading up to when I went to my first Killington race, and I moved up to Washington, D.C. And I was like, oh, I've got hills now. I'm going to be so ready for this Killington race. I'm going to run the Ultra Beast. And I get up there and it's like, oh, this is more of a walk than a running race. This is a walking race.
Yeah, coming out of Florida, that's no joke. Yeah, I mean, our biggest race is an elevation of about 16 feet, I believe.
Yeah. That's A-frame cargo.
It is A-frame.
I was going to say it's probably Oleta River Park, a couple 5 foot up, 5 foot.
Oh, wait. Talking to 2012, Oleta River Park, Miami. The first one I ever did. This shirt.
You were only 1 year behind me.
Yeah, I did this, and then that's when I thought, hey, I can put a race on and change my job description to mud guy.
So, David, let me ask you a question. I've got a stat for the most failed obstacles from elite males.
Spear.
What event? No. What event?
Oh, the race with the most failed?
Yeah.
Probably Killington.
Nope.
Not Killington.
No, for the elites.
There'll be something with conditions. Is it a specific year or every
Yes.
Year? Okay. There is a sprint course. This might not be it, but there's a sprint course from 2013 North Carolina where 18 of the top 25, 18 of the top 20 men failed the traverse wall that day because it was so
oh my gosh,
couldn't do anything. And so that immediately pops to mind.
So I think this was sort of modern day stats. So I actually got
modern day stats.
I know.
That's over 8 years ago in the old days when everyone was burning witches and stuff. Freaking modern days.
Modern day. So basically Seattle has come up with one of the biggest. Do you remember that Do you remember that? I think Kempson fell off. I think it was monkey bars or something ridiculous, and there was Ryan Kent.
This weekend, I was with Kempson. We were talking about this exact scenario.
Yeah.
He and Johnny Luna Lima both failed to get they couldn't get over the tabletop to get on the virtual cargo net. And then afterwards was monkey bars, and he failed the monkey bar.
They failed that too because Kempson just kind of his body shut down because it was so cold. And then I think loads of people fell off Olympus. Lots of people. I think VJ Jones and so this is Ryan Kent and VJ Jones. Z-Walls twice. So on the Sunday and also the next day. so sorry, the super and also the sprint.
Yeah, I think that we saw a lot of that. I mean, it's just something about that Seattle air just being so damp. It just hits you harder with the cold. Yep.
And the tire flip with the suction.
Oh yeah, I know something about bad tire flips now.
Jacksonville. Yes. This year, everyone was having a nightmare with Jack. Was it one person? VJ was the only one who did it in Jacksonville this year.
There was a few people, I think. Brian.
Sorry, of the first batch.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get this. So what do we got? So I've got a couple that I've thrown in. See if you guys did this one. One that came up on mine was the Ohio trifecta in a day.
The one that was the weather was awful, right?
Yeah, and it was basically Beast Sprint Soup all in one day. That one came up.
Was there hail that day?
I don't know. I didn't do it. I just know it came up, and a lot of people were cursing it / praising that one. That's what I've got at number 10. What do you got at number 10, Steve?
I didn't really do my number 10s, but I think I've got something like Asheville 2016.
Okay. I have that at number 4.
Because
basically your fault, everyone said.
It was myself and Vinny who ended up doing this 2-mile section going up probably it was one of the toughest supers I think I've ever been involved with.
Right.
It was on par with some of the Palmerton. It ended up having a slower finishing time than the Palmerton races, and it ended up with more elevation than the Palmerton races.
So one thing about back then, 2016, 2017, those Asheville courses is you slog through this little river and you get out into the woods on the trails, and they have these undulating hills with this soft earth that your feet kind of just treadmill on it. It just caves away beneath your feet. And when you get through that 2 or 3 mile stretch of thorn bushes and ground that you can't push off of, this is just awful. You come into the muddy section. If you go uphill to that quarry, you hit that nasty mud that is butter. You can't go through it. And then you go uphill for another 1,000 feet afterward. And then you go straight downhill. And I remember people failed a ton of obstacles there too, as I recall.
Yeah, that was the Ryan Atkins failing or possibly failing rope because he went up, slipped down.
Yeah, I remember.
Obviously, that was the one attempt. So Yep. And that was crazy. I think what was the funniest thing was I think Hunter was there racing, and I was tracking them. I don't think we were on the rabbit just yet, but we were doing we were just sort of tracking the elite racers. And I remember just hearing these shouts from in the trees. They ran across the wasp nest, and everyone was getting stung. The first 5 or 6 male stop, bang, 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 and Hunter comes out of the bushes. He's like, I just been stung.
Does that qualify as an advantage? Because obviously it helps you run faster.
Oh well, they were.
As long as you take the wasp over the finish line, is that the rules?
All right, it's crazy.
All right, let's jump in. So number 9, I got Big Bear, which we already hit. What do you got? What do you got for 9?
I've got Big Bear quite a bit higher up just because of the people's votes. So possibly for me, it's going to be something like, where am I at? I think one of the Tahoes probably.
Okay. All right, we'll jump in. So at 8, now the big difference here, I think, is pretty obvious. Is the fact that most of the people I deal with are all on the East Coast because that's where most of my races are. You're West Coast, and that's why. So I do have 8. I got the 2018 Dallas Ultra.
So
2018
that's Glen Rose, right?
Was that the year it was really cold?
I think it was really cold. I kind of looked this up because I was surprised that it was on there. It's still classed as one of the fastest ultra finishing times.
Huh.
So I think it was just like this is what's interesting about a ultra course that you end up trying to run the whole lot in, because it was so flat. You end up being more exhausted because you're going at a higher pace for 30 miles rather than some of the other ultras that we do is just like a slugfest and you just end up walking at a slower pace. So your heart rate is not as high, possibly, and that's why I think people are going to underestimate the Ohio ultra that, we're putting on in a couple of weeks time hard. Because people are going to be running hard and then you just fatigue out. I mean, what's your take on that, David?
I didn't run that race. I think that was one of the years I was there for commentary on that race. And if it is, it's the year that Jody, and Amelia and I had to drive to Walmart to buy like these big rancher jackets because we were so cold sitting out. They just couldn't keep us warm enough in that tent. When you're sitting for 5 hours and not moving, and it's freezing, it's tough. I ran a couple years at that. That's the Glen Rose race that were like that venue. I ran in 2012. I ran that venue and it was scorching hot. And then I ran it again in 2013 and it was maybe it was 2013, maybe it was 2014. Freezing cold. And they'd had Texas had the coldest 10-day stretch that had in 100 years. And we were like breaking the ice to get into the rope climb. Like, because remember back in the day, you used to climb.
Tough guy.
Yeah.
And I was very smart back then. I ran in a pair of tights and no shirt. And then had to be revived at the finish line. You guys had like,
oh my gosh,
finish line. I was like basically like my body hit its complete failure point a mile before the end of that race because some jerk decided it would be real fun to put a second bucket carry in the last mile of the race.
Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, it sounds like a Norm move.
Yeah. All right. So let's jump in. So I got number 7. I think we touched on this. I got number 7. I got 2015 and 2018 Temecula Beast. Which
heard a lot
we
about
touched on.
Heard a lot about this race. I've actually never raced Temecula, but people used to talk about that 2015 one, like the stuff of legends. I think that's where Hunter made one of his like big emergences into the sport. I mean, he'd already been there, but I think that was a big one. I think I want to say 2013 is when he like hit that one and like appeared on the scene. But
the races like Temecula 15, and this is what's great about these, these dates is that people have nicknamed them. So that the Beast in 2015 was nicknamed Hellmecula just because I think it reached 110 degrees or even 111 degrees. Mm-hmm. And they carried on with the race. And basically, I mean, talking to a lot of staff, I was there. I heard about the race and I was working for Spartan at the time, but it was absolutely hell. Some of the staff members described it as almost warlike because they had loaded up the back of pickup trucks with racers, and it was just bodies on top of bodies who had just collapsed on the side of the road, basically on the side of the track, and side of obstacles, and we drove them back to medical, and medical were just so nowhere to put these bodies, and literally you're just unloading these people from the back of the truck putting them on the ground and going back out, and it was like people with IVs everywhere. It was pretty intense, and a lot was learned that day. I think I was chatting to Robert Coble about how extreme that was, and it going on to a little somber in nature. Obviously what happened in China recently with the ultra race there, that 21 people died due to weather. Probably one of the worst fatalities in a race. I think we've come a long way in this sport in terms of sort of trying to mitigate that risks. And I think Garfield can kind of talk on, the amount of preparation that there is coming into these like crazy events. I mean, we're talking about some of the most extreme circumstances that we're, putting these races in. When do we say enough is enough? When do you cancel a race, and when do you, how do you mitigate that?
That's a tough one. And I just mentioned, having to cut out 4 miles of the course mid-race in the Carolinas because it just got to the point where it was dangerous.
Yeah.
Not, there's dangerous. And as David said, you put a bucket carry at the end. That's not dangerous. That's just someone being an asshole and making you suffer. Yeah. You know what I mean? So but if people start falling down the mountain because of the buckets and breaking legs and necks, then you got to pull the plug. And it's, and that's one of those things that sort of sits on the race director's shoulders. It's tough. It's a tough call to make. I mean, there's a lot of people there, you're going to piss people off if you cancel it. And everyone's like, oh, in fact, I did an article actually years ago about races canceling. And it was all about people. So, well, I signed a waiver. Why are you canceling the race? I did a waiver. And part of my article was like, do you think the volunteers signed a waiver? They're going to stand out in the lightning for you because you signed a waiver? You think the staff are going to go and get electrocuted so that you can stand on the top of an A-frame in a lightning storm?
Yeah,
so,
or like, insurance is going to probably go up a little bit when you die out there. That's
right. So yeah, it's tough. And it's a tough time to make a call. Obviously, it's not just on me. I mean, I'm liaising with my hierarchy. We have a whole chain going on between myself and Morris and all that. But it's not taken lightly. Those decisions to cancel a race are not taken lightly. But the second I personally think there's a risk or there's a pattern of people, people will get injured, they'll roll ankles and that. But as soon as I see a pattern, then we got to step in and say, right, stop it.
For sure. Now, I mentioned this North Carolina sprint from like 2013 earlier. And I got to say, guys, it's so crazy because I took my roommate Tyson came down my roommate at the time. He came down with me and it was his first Spartan race. And I was like, you're going to love it, man. You're just going to love this. And we ran Saturday and we all had a great time. And it was cold, but it wasn't terrible.
Right.
On Sunday, it was soaking wet, raining like to the bone. And I remember distinctly, he's like, I'm going to run in this long sleeve t-shirt. And I was like, you should really just lose the shirt. You'll end up being warmer in the long run. Like, trust me. And he goes, no, you're all idiots. I'm going to run in this long sleeve shirt. Well, he gets to, it's only a 4-mile course. He's in the last mile. He climbs up, back in the day, you used to do like Stairway to Sparta, used to be like onto like these, like there would be a cargo net over the top of a couple shipping containers.
Yep.
He got up to the top and then he just rolled over and he just laid there and started just shivering uncontrollably. And they had to get medical to help carry him down from the top because he couldn't get down. I didn't know this. I was at the finish line waiting for him, freezing. And I checked medical, and then I checked medical again, and then I checked medical again. There were so many people in medical that they had to have a second medical tent pop up. And they were running up to people. This is what he told me. He said he arrived in there and they said to him, "Are you wearing underwear?" That was the first question they asked him. And he said, "Yep." And they just grabbed his shorts, whoosh, just ripped them off and then wrapped him in a foil blanket. And he said he's about 5'8", 145 pounds. He said he was probably the biggest person in medical. So every single like skinny person that arrived was like immediately hypothermic on this course. Good times.
Oh, crazy. And I mean, I think there's a lot of races that have been affected through weather. My lovely wife, Stacy, has literally only done one race, and it was 2012 Sacramento. And so my boss is Dan Luzzi, and he was at that event and remember basically, huge amounts of rainstorm came in, everyone freezing cold, and it was a beast. It was a beast course. And yeah, that was her one and done. That was it, done. Yeah, no more. And it is amazing to sort of, go through the history of how many Spartan races that we've done and how many, have like just not being canceled, but maybe on the borderline should have. But, it's definitely, there's definitely a clasp. And I think we've learned a lot. And I think that, nowadays everything's a little bit more standardized. Everything's a little bit more, controlled. And we have very strict things in place to kind of stop it getting gnarly. And it's quite interesting. If you've been to a few of our meetings, David, in the mornings, and like just how in depth we are with sort of, we have a thing called Code Irene, which is like a lightning protocol, and just a bunch of other stuff where, it's very much about the safety of everyone out there and everyone racing. And it's hard to control when you've got 10,000 racers out there. It's like herding freaking ducks,
herding cats.
But,
all right. So I want to quickly touch on some. We're going to go into the top 5, and we're going to speed through in a sec. But I want to touch on something that we touched on the very first episode. And I want to get David's take on this, and that is the new power rankings that have been kicked out by Kevin Donahue. Have you been tracking on that, David? What are your thoughts on that whole thing?
I have looked at a couple iterations of this. I didn't agree with the power rankings, but
that's good.
That's all right. Nor did I.
It's cool we're doing it. I think that it should either be like an athlete's poll or a.
That sounds like something on Pornhub. Sorry, carry on.
I feel like.
I just got bleeped.
Somebody jumped down my throat when I said it should be an athlete's poll. I only said an athlete's poll because
all people can hear right now watching is beep 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 beep.
Garfield, we're not talking about power wankings.
Power wankings
with the athlete's poll. I think the thing is, they were saying, in the NCAA, it's either coach's poll or Associated Press. Well, we don't have enough people in the press to cover it. And we don't have coaches. So it should really come down to where the athletes all know exactly what the hierarchy is.
Yeah.
Every athlete knows that. And they know based on a couple races, if somebody's no longer in their current or their former position in the hierarchy. Like I'll use Robert Killian. Like right now, he is not number 1 for a reason. He is not, he's been injured. He had to work way more hours, hasn't been able to train. He's not anywhere even remotely close to the top 10 right now. And he would not argue that he is. So to put him anywhere near there is crazy.
I totally agree. There's just so much in, and it's hard to kind of diss this, but I think there's just so much, what's the word? It's just all over the place.
Well, and I think a lot of this is like, former champion, should until he's been enthroned, should he be somewhere up there? Sure. But and some of it's like emotional decisions. And I think some of the setup was based on, well, who's raced this year and who's raced well, but like somebody that podiums on a Saturday race when there's a national series Sunday race the next day and no one ran in that Saturday race. Like I don't give any merit to that podium.
Right.
Like, in the power rankings. It's great that you got a podium, but it doesn't count to the power rankings for me. And I would also count in like, okay,
sounds good.
Jacksonville was like a very fluky race because of the tire kind of totally flipped everything on its head. So I don't know how much you can take from that about where people finished as opposed to how they were running up into that point.
I think that's the case, and that's what I thought Kevin was doing, but he's contradicted himself so many times in this that I've kind of almost lost faith on it. But and I thought the whole point of it was honoring, if you did an awesome race but you missed your spear, and you came in 7th, but you were leading the whole thing up until spear, and the spear throw was, the last obstacle, then therefore you would probably get the honoring of the points.
Yeah, exactly. Like for me, like when I look at it, okay, I thought Josiah like ran incredibly well through Jacksonville, but he's done only one race. And I'm like, since like he ran one in like 2011, like I need to see more and on a wider array of courses. I'm not doubting him. I need to see a little more. Gawiski, managed to run a really great finish at both North Carolina and Jacksonville. But I think even he would argue like he's ranked a little high because like some things happened to allow him to get to those finishes that were abnormal. Mark Gaudet had a series of bad luck throughout all of these races. But if I had to put my money on him or some of the other people listed in the top 5 to 7, I would put my money on him. You know, I think the power rankings it needs to take into account how fit these guys are.
Yeah. And it's the same with the women as well. It's, you know, I think there's going to be, I think there was possibly some localism, favoritism, you know, gone into some of these picks. And I think, you know, he's, you know, Kevin's done them to kind of stir up a little bit of chat, which I think is great. But I think they got to be a little bit realistic. I would love a Jack Bauer stat as well of just kind of finishing times and like, you know, actually real. One of the stats I would really love to see is, you know, and this is one of the rankings I would like to see. Because it enables like the people like Victor Quesada, who's done really well at a lot of these races. He beat Robert Killian in, you know, on the Jacksonville Super. And, you know, he's beaten some pretty good people. However, he's still maybe second, third tier kind of racer. However, he's done a lot of the races and performed very well. And if it's I would like to see if it's you know, just a normal standard sprint super or beast, you know, you get 10 points for the win or whatever. And then if it's like a championship race, you get, you know, double that. And then if it's a, you know, and you get rankings all the way down to 30 or 40 places. And then if you know, a world championship would be triple that. So I think it
want to see the return of the point series. You want the point
I do like point series, like a cross country style point series, because I think inverted cross country style. I like it because inverted. I like it because a lot of people, especially in OCR, if they're like out of the top 3, they kind of just let things slip. And I want to see that every race counts. Like, I mean, every point counts.
You know, maybe you get to drop one. I'm a huge believer in dropping a bad race or a race you can make. Sure. But yeah, I think if you do that, then you get a situation where like Ryan Atkins probably ends up on top at the end of the year because of his remarkable consistency across all
the big champion, and you're honoring the big championship races. Yes.
Yeah, and across all race formats, and a VJ is going to be at the top for a huge chunk of the regular season. But when we hit the mountain courses, he isn't focused on specializing in that. And so he's going to have a few performances where he's more like 8 to 10 instead of 1 to 3. And so that it does mix things up. You know, you'll see a Ryan Kempson will be near the top because he's going to be solid across every format of race that we have. So I think that is a more reliable way to look at it. And you look at the women's, you know, Lindsay and Nicole will rise to the top in that form. And then somebody else who really only can specialize in some of the shorter, flatter stuff or only in the mountains won't.
So here's a question for you.
All right, we'll do that. Then we got to get back to the thing because our 20-minute show is now an hour long.
very quickly.
20-minute show. I didn't know that.
I know, nor did I. Or maybe I did. I just forget. Magida, how good is VJ right now? Is he, because obviously they raced last weekend at Hildevat and VJ beat Atkins in a kind of like a one-on-one kind of race. But how good is he? And is he capable of being a world champion? Is he capable of going all the way? Because he's matured a lot, right?
Okay. VJ was spectacular this weekend. I can tell you that. But I think it's to be expected on a course that's mile loops where you have one long run and then everything else is just obstacle. Yeah. He's so fluid with his obstacle proficiency, and also his flat ground running speed is spectacular, as good as anybody. With that said, you know, Abu Dhabi probably gives him a better shot than Tahoe.
Yeah.
Because Tahoe
top 3?
Certainly possible. I think the thing is his focus is on more of the shorter course things. And, you know, it just requires such a different style of training that I don't know that that's what he wants to focus on. Of course, he would love to be a world champion, but I think he's going to win a world championship in OCR world championship short course. And and then he's really interested in Spartan cross, and he's really interested in a lot of these shorter ones. I don't want to speak for him, but that's the vibe that I got from chatting with him this weekend. And that he's more than capable, but he would require him to put in 12 months of really focused training on specifically what we're encountering in the world championship course, which of course nobody knows what we're encountering this year, the world championship course.
He does.
Well, I'm designing it.
That's your race director right there.
I'm the Sandman. All right, so tell you what, we're gonna skip in. So we got three. I think between this, we got three that we're gonna name the hardest race of all time, the last 10 years. I think it's between Tahoe, Killington, and the Carolina Ultra Beast. So I'm going to ask Steve first, and then we go to David. Steve, what is your vote between those three for the toughest of the last decade?
I probably wouldn't put the Carolina Beast in there, but it's in there anyway. So that's got to be a 3 for me. Got to be a Tahoe 2019 and one of the Killingtons. The Killingtons just on paper and just from people saying it is the toughest race that we do. I think it's one of the toughest half marathon races in the US.
Gotcha.
That anyone does. I think it's on foot race over 13 miles. Killington Beast is one of the hardest foot races in the US.
All right, David, what would you say?
I completely agree. I think no disrespect to the South Carolina any races.
I'll tell you right now, my vote is Killington as well.
Yeah, okay. So no, they're great, but I if I had to list like the three hardest races, it'd be like Killington 2012, 2013, 2014. I didn't run 2016, but I presume that would be in there too. I just think that they just are. They are the kind of races where you feel like you have rhabdo afterwards. You're just broken for like a week. They're the kind of races where every time I race there, I get cramps because it's such a power output. And then you hit the cold water and you just cramp up. It's broken my heart. The last 2 years that we raced in the championship race, it broke my heart. And I went from running to cramping and just screaming and being furious and and then just barely surviving those races. And I've just seen like the deadened look in people's eyes when they finish, just like it's just another level. If you haven't raced it, you just don't know. Like it's not like doing a Spartan race anywhere else. So that's just crazy.
I think it's unanimous. I think it's Killington.
I think you also gotta give some props to Wintergreen for being what I think is the hardest super course that there ever was. And the death march on mile 5 is just stuff of legends. And I was in duels on that hill both times. I podiumed there and had to crack somebody on that. And it was basically like you look death in the eye on that climb. So really brutal. Yeah. But the 2012 Killington course, to me, with 6 ski slopes per lap when we did the Ultra Beast, was just something that this is stuff of nightmares for me.
So I think a couple of notables in there that I'm just going to throw in if we were winding it out a little bit would be Sun Peaks, Morzine, and Andorra for some of the sort of the hardest races that have ever been, and they're definitely the in terms of time and elevation and the quality of people who was actually running it. With their times come out as sort of some of the hardest races that ever was. Some of those Canadian races, Kimberley, I think it was Kimberley, Sun Peaks have definitely topped the charts with some of their times and elevation, like crazy courses.
One more that didn't get mentioned at all in any conversation, but needs at least some credit would be Vernon, New Jersey.
Oh my gosh, of course.
How can we forget Vernon, New Jersey? Like that beast course just shattered people. I won the super course there in 2014, and that was devastation, just carnage.
All right, I gotta cut it because we're going on, and it's a long show. So we got 5 questions, Dave. We're going to finish up the show with these 5 questions that we throw everybody. Okay. Quick fire, so it's quick. And then you're gonna let us know what you think. So, first question: how did you get into running this OCR stuff?
I ran a Spartan race for fun because I just saw an ad for it on Facebook and I thought it looked cool. Like I love lifting weights. I hadn't been running for a long time and boom, Facebook ad, Spartan race, ran it again the next year with my friends. We drank a bunch before it. It was stupid, not smart. And then a guy named Hobie Call flew down for a local race. And after I squared off with him and he beat the pants off me, he kind of encouraged me to pursue it as my sport. He saw the talent in me, and so I do owe him credit for that.
Awesome. All righty, good old Hobie. All right, number 2. What is your favorite race moment? The highlight of your career? Yeah, the highlight of your career.
Man, I would say probably. You know what? I'm not going to say the win at Vernon, New Jersey, although that was big for me. I will say my podium finish at the end of the Wintergreen Super in 2014. I think it was 2014, right before my studio opened, and I was coaching like 50 people, outdoor Spartan classes that whole year leading up to it. And I had like 20 of them waiting for me at the finish line. And it was just like hugs and emotion. And like, I'm not crying, you're crying. You know,
who else was on the podium?
So that year was Novakovic 1 and Hunter 2, and I was 3. I had outrun like Glenn Reyes, James Appleton, Kempson. Really good stacked field.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Next one. Now, question number 3. Tell us something about yourself that you don't think people know. Well, most people don't know about you.
Something about me that most people don't know. Wow. I'm such an open book most of the time. I should have prepared earlier.
That's why I sent you the questions, David.
Well, when I here's one that most people don't know. I was a 2-sport college athlete. I started in cross country and then decided I hated it and joined the varsity football team. So I played
football. Oh, wow.
Are we talking fake football or real football?
I'm talking American football, fake
football.
Fake the football you use your hands for. And I turned myself from 142 pounds the year before to 208 pounds of just
holy cow.
Wow. I was a big boy for a little while.
The big boy.
Wow. All right. Did not know that. Okay, here we go. This one's going to get you as well. 3 words to describe yourself.
I would say fiery, disciplined, and determined.
Nice. And here's a one that's going to totally throw you because you didn't prepare. If you could go for a run, not a race, but if you just go for a run with anyone in history, alive or dead, who would it be and why?
Oh, it's too easy, man. It's too easy. That would be my childhood hero, Steve Prefontaine.
Oh, wow. That's a great choice.
Because just like the way he just could inspire me. And I think there'd be so much that I'd want to pick his brain about and find out what makes that man really tick, to like get inside there and learn that and maybe harness some of that would be incredible.
All right. Good stuff. All right. So we got one last thing that we're gonna run by you, and then we're gonna wrap it up. At the end of each one, we did the same with Woodsy. We use a piece of British slang. It's a word that the Brits use all the time, and you have to tell us what you think it means.
I think he's going to be quite good at this because.
You think he's be good at this one?
Yeah, I think he's going to be good at this.
I'm well traveled.
So yeah, I don't know. Hopefully this won't get bleeped because that's going to really ruin the bit. But so if the British say that they are pissed, what does it mean?
Drunk.
Nice. Nailed it.
I thought you were going to give me something challenging, like on the pole, something like that.
Athlete's pole. All right. Well, we've got some good stuff there. We got some proper editing to do.
Mate.
Proper pissed. Pissed as a newt is what we actually say. Apparently, small lizards get very drunk.
They're pissed as a cunt.
And that's completely bleeped. All right. So, with that being said, David, I appreciate your time, mate.
Hey, fellas, thanks for having me on. It's so good to see you as always, and I can't wait to see you out at a race. Let's go do this thing. 2020 is a big year.
We'll see you soon.
Awesome.
Cheers, David.
Thanks, mate. Bye.